And so one of the things to tell you here is it's very important that during these challenging times, and we're going to talk about some ways that I would recommend that you get through them, but during these challenging times, we have to be very self-aware of not wearing out two groups here. The first group are the ones that are overperforming and carrying the team. That Michael Jordan shooting that three-point shot with all the entire other team surrounding him and jumping up, and he still shoots it and makes it. We got to make sure we don't burn out the all-stars. And then secondly, and this one is equally, if not more important, we got to make sure that we don't wear out our existing customer base, because that's a default trait. If we're struggling, what happens is we start increasing, and I don't know if you're doing this or not, but this is just a default tendency I'm talking about. We start increasing the amount of frequency and intensity to that existing base that has bought from us in the past, and they start to feel it. And another thing that we want to make sure we don't do when we are either in a downturn or in a recession, and by the way, a recession, technically, we're not in one. All right. Technically, a recession is when your gross domestic product, your GDP basically declines. I think it's 2 consecutive quarters in a row. All right. And so technically, if you were to look at those numbers, we haven't had 2 consecutive quarters or 6 consecutive months of GDP decline. We haven't. And the reason we haven't is because consumer spending is still so strong. That's what's kept us away from the textbook definition of recession. But we are in a downturn. And we know that we're in a downturn because there's all kinds of indicators that tell us this. The stock market, crude oil prices rising, US Treasury rate between the bonds, like the short-term and long-term bonds, strikes and layoffs specifically in the automotive industry. That's usually a leading indicator. Consumer spending usually goes down. This is the one that's got us puzzled as far as our national economy is concerned, because consumer spending is actually up, and that's what's keeping us from that recession, statistic. Unemployment rate usually increases. Government shutdowns become more frequent. And then we've got struggling global economies. I mean, look what's going on right now with China, with real estate. Look what's going on right now in Europe with, borrowing and interest rates and all of these things. So most of those indicators that show that we're in a downturn are there. But by definition, we're not in a recession. So what you have right now is you have a market that believes a storm is coming, and they're putting plywood on the windows.